Dianne, one half of the Real Housewives of Alaska.
And this is Marnell, and in this episode, we're going to control, alt-right, delete.
Or as I said to Marnell, this is going to be our fuckity fuck episode, so strap in.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can get fucked in this episode.
All right, so we're talking about White Noise, the 2020 documentary about the alt-right, not the movie that Michael Keaton was in, although we did identify that, in fact, that was a thing last night when we were talking. This is the Atlantic's first feature documentary, The Atlantic, the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It was released in June of 2020, and it got an international premiere at the International Documentary Film Festival in Amsterdam in November of 2020. So it's pretty new.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason that you selected it.
Yes. It's just something that kind of came up on my watch list, and it was very current politics. So, yeah.
I'm so glad that I didn't try to watch this before I went to bed last night, which is what I told you I was going to do. Oh my God, Koba is playing with that ridiculous toy again. Did you hear it? It just went, no. Which is totally how I feel about watching things about white supremacy before bed. I'm glad I didn't watch it.
I actually watched it as I was going to sleep last night, and I only fell asleep about 20 minutes before the ending. Like,
I would have never fallen asleep.
It didn't make my blood boil as badly as yours.
Oh my God, I was enraged all day. All day. I'm still enraged.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I mean, like I said, I had a bunch of people on my Facebook page being like, stop watching stuff like that. You know it's not healthy for you. And it's like, no, we need to watch stuff like this. We need to be informed.
Absolutely.
We need to know what's going on around us, and we need to know who these people are. So don't apologize that my blood boiled. It's all right. All right, so how did you rate it?
So, I rated it a 4.3 snake oil supplements.
Oh, that is so funny. Because they all
seem to sell them.
Well, definitely Mike Cernovich, who we will talk about in great detail. And Alex Jones does too, actually. And Mike Cernovich has links to Alex Jones.
So does Richard Spencer.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me for that matter if Lauren Southern doesn't.
She has links to Breitbart, I believe.
She does. Yes, she does. So I rated it higher, with Hail Satan being our 5 out of 5. I rated it 4.8 punched Nazis out of 5.
Woo!
Because I had to go and look at reruns of Richard Spencer getting punched to make myself feel better.
We do not condone violence, but I mean...
you know, punching Nazis is okay. Sorry,
yeah.
I think punching Nazis is okay. And I come from a long line of Nazis, apparently. So, which we will talk about as well.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, I really did have to make myself feel better. And you know that footage of Richard Spencer getting... of course my phone rings again. This happened to us last night, too.
It did.
So that footage of Richard Spencer getting punched in the head by, I'm assuming, someone from Antifa, was out as he was leaving Donald Trump's inauguration ceremonies in 2017.
Was it?
I didn't know that. I found that out when I looked it up today, and I was like, what?
For some reason, I thought it was when he was leaving CPAC before that.
No, it is legit from him leaving the inauguration.
Ugh.
Yeah. All right, so I have some numbers, and I think they're kind of shocking. So Yes and no. So I thought the IMDb number is shocking. It's a 4.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
It is. And I thought that was shocking too. And then I looked at the other rating places for it and I was like, IMDb seems a little biased.
Yeah, because it actually got excellent critical reception. One of the reviews that I read, the author Eric Cohn from IndieWire called it the scariest documentary of 2020. It's an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. And Metacritic rated it at 77%, which indicates generally favorable reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel that IMDb had some skewed ratings.
And
like
I'm
a bunch of
wondering...
incels rushed to IMDb.
What, you think incels don't hang out at Rotten Tomatoes?
Maybe it's harder to get like I don't know, blue checked or whatever on Rotten Tomatoes. It's harder to get an account that counts.
By the way, in addition to probably being really sweary, we're not going to be even remotely nice. So if that turns you off, you should probably skip to the next episode.
I always try to be nice, but I don't know. It's a little hard to be nice to Nazis.
Right.
So yeah, the user reviews on IMDb, not a real alt-right documentary, forgettable propaganda. It's exactly what you think, but it's not a documentary. And then there's a bunch of 10s where it's like thoroughly researched and illuminating, stunning, chilling, front row seat to the alt-right, insightful, almost hilarious view of the alt-right. So like the reviews are either 1-star reviews or 10-star reviews.
And so what's really intense is that the guy who directed and was the cinematographer for this documentary spent 4 years embedded with the alt-right.
Yes, Daniel Lombroso.
Yeah, so don't tell me this was not researched and not thought through.
Right. And I did watch a bunch of interviews with Daniel Lombroso today.
Oh, interesting.
And,
okay.
He talks about a lot of the footage that was not included in this documentary, and it was stuff that was fully said on camera, but it did not fit into the documentary that they were making. And he will at some point be releasing sort of smaller documentaries. And it kind of sounds like a lot of it surrounds Lauren Southern and kind of the turn she kind of went through in this. She kind of had some realizations. I don't think
except now she's back
yet.
out being an activist, quote, activist again.
Right. But I think she's young, and I think it's going to take time for the things that she's experienced to sour within her. And
all right, that's the Steve Trevor argument.
I have faith, not a lot, but a little. And then there was some stuff about Richard Spencer. I mean, it kind of sounded like that Richard Spencer opened up to Daniel Lombroso, like in some like late night back and forth texting and stuff. And so I think they're all grifters. I think that, yes, they believe that they are better than people, but I think for the most part, they're doing it for the money and the clout, you know? So
I disagree with you. I think Mike Cernovich is a grifter. I think Lauren Southern and I think Richard Spencer are truly white nationalists.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that there's some belief there, but the extremes that they go to are for money and fame. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I don't think we entirely agree. Which is okay. I just don't think we entirely agree.
Yeah.
So, obviously, White Noise, great title for the movie. I agree with what you said last night. I'm not quite sure how they were able to get the rights to this title, considering there have actually been two White Noise horror movies made. But okay. Here's my concern about White Noise, with it being noise. If it's all just so much background noise, do we lose the fear and do we lose the importance of what this is? If we write them off as just being grifters, do we lose the importance of what this is?
Yes, I think so. Because I kind of think this. You were talking to someone today who said that they had left the Republican Party when the Tea Party took over, and a lot of us looked at the Tea Party and went, "Oh, haha! Look at them! Aren't they funny?" And then it wound up taking, we wound up in a red wave, and it wound up taking over our politics, and it just built from there under our noses relatively, because we all kind of poo-pooed it and ignored it, because we didn't take it seriously enough.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same thing on the other side. Like 4 years ago, they were laughing at us for knitting pink pussy hats and marching on Washington. And look what's happened in the 4 years since then. We have the House, we have the Senate, and we have the White House.
If we can keep it.
If we can keep it. And that's, we talked about that, I think, off air last night, where, it's nice to have the funny Bernie jokes, and it's nice to kind of take a deep breath. And there's a lot of people who are breathing for the first time in 4 years because of their, possible immigration status, or the person that they are married to, or their sexual identity and their position in the military, things like that. There's a lot of people who are like breathing a big sigh of relief, but, we can't get complacent for too long, because, the things that we want to do are bigger than what has happened recently in the body politic. So, it's nice to be able to take a deep breath, but we've still got miles to go. And ignoring people like Richard Spencer and Mike Cernovich, could get us to backslide. These guys could rear their ugly head, 2 years from now and, take some Senate seats.
And I think what's even scarier, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, is that, the Mike Cernoviches of the world and the Richard Spencers and Lauren Southerns of the world, they don't hide very well. But I think the insurrectionist riot in the Capitol proved that there are a lot of people who are hiding. I mean, they're hiding in plain sight, but there are a lot of people who are hiding better than we realize.
Right. There is someone that we talk about, that we're friends with, that we had no idea that they had the fuse that they had, because they're so friendly and polite, and, we get along with them, and, there are views that person holds, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And so these people really, really are your neighbors and your coworkers and your family members. So,
oh my God, I was just running through some stuff tonight, kind of looking for updates on Capitol Hill arrests, and there's a woman who got arrested who took, quote, emergency leave from her job as a probation officer to go to the Capitol Hill riot.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, we're discovering that there are people with military backgrounds, and there are people in law enforcement, and there are people that are your neighbors, your realtor, your your eyelash extension person in Beverly Hills. I'm not kidding. I read an article about that woman today.
Oh,
She's done eyelash extensions for multiple highly placed celebrities. She got arrested, I don't know, 3-4 days ago for being not just a part of the riots, but being someone who was like charging in, screaming, "You're not going to take our Trumpy bear away from us."
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Even Smalls like was grown.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and I know that we'll talk about it more, that, you know, the Mike Cernoviches, the Lauren Southerns, the Richard Spencers are deeply concerning, but they are also very visible, so it's a little easier to keep an eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it sounds like you may know more about Daniel Lombroso than I do. I read
a little bit.
So I read several of his articles in The Atlantic. He wrote a pretty extensive article about Lauren Southern that was really interesting. He wrote an article about being embedded with the alt-right for 4 years and it producing this documentary. This is his first film.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, he was a staff producer at The Atlantic for 5 years. And his pieces, according to his biography, focus on the insular, fringe, or underrepresented communities. And they said that his interest in this particular subject was deeply personal because his grandmothers on both sides of his family survived the Holocaust.
Right. Right. He has talked about that. One of the interviews that I watched him on YouTube today asked him about that and if it was kind of basically difficult to keep his mouth shut while kind of, you know, following Richard Spencer around and listening to the things that, you know, the Charlottesville rally, the Jews will not replace us, you know, like that took a lot of what is the word I want?
Restraint.
Restraint, yes, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you are well on your way to being an amazing filmmaker and documentarian if you can just take all of that stuff in and not editorialize.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because I read that article about Lauren Southern that he wrote, and I don't know if this got mentioned in the stuff that you had looked at, but she actually said to him at one point, "Gosh, do you think I've gotten in so deep that I'm crazy? Do you think I can actually ever go back to a normal life?"
Wow, no.
Yeah, she actually texted that to him at one point, and he said in the article, "I didn't know how to answer her."
You know, I mean, I really didn't know much about her before this documentary.
I didn't know anything about her before this documentary. Nothing. Never heard of the girl.
And when it started out, she was 22, so I think that she was very young and very naive.
I still think you're giving her a giant pass.
I think that shows in the documentary. But you know, when she asks questions like that, it kind of makes me hope for her. But then I'm also like, but she took a year off in June 2019. She's like, okay, I'm leaving social media. I'm done. You know, and she stopped her YouTube channel. Well, in June of 2020, she came back and she is still doing the same type of things that she did. So,
and before you and I signed on, and we're like all over the map tonight, but here it is. Here we are. Before you and I signed on, we checked, and all three of the members of the alt-right who were featured in this documentary, Richard Spencer, Mike Cernovich, Lauren Southern, They are all still on Twitter. They are all still blue check verified. I didn't look at any of Cernovich's stuff or Spencer's stuff, but Lauren Southern's stuff is still as vile and repugnant as the crap she was spewing in this film.
Yep.
So I will say one more thing about Daniel Lombroso. So I read his article, 4 Years Embedded with the Alt-Right, which was published in June of 2020, just before the film was released. And it was really interesting. He talked about these members of the alt-right as being wealthy and groomed at some of America's most prestigious institutions, which I think makes them incredibly dangerous. And then he talked about how hatred feels good, briefly, but it feels good. And he said that he hopes that White Noise shows how empty that promise is.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I was just watching, one of my favorite TikTokers who was talking, she reads basically the equivalent of what Parler is now, the different sort of
is this the same person that you shared with me? What'd you call her? The Parler?
Her skit that she did, that she called herself Parler Martyr. She reads Parler so you don't have to. And there was just something today where she was reading something that they were like, the story is now that that everyone has been arrested and charged, but they think that it would cause a civil war if they put them in jail, and so they're allowing them to go about their business. And Donald Trump is really a shadow president, so everything that happens in the next 4 years is actually Donald Trump's
yes.
doing. I know, and I'm just like, how do people still believe this?
So that plays in with the QAnon article that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I've never had close experiences with cults before, so I'm just like, I don't understand how people still buy this.
Yeah. Ugh. So I'm going to share one thing off of Facebook really quick, and then I think I will just go into that QAnon article. Because we don't have a hero this week. There are not really any heroes in this story except maybe the director. So Shannon Moore, who is a journalist in Alaska, and we're having our own little dust up in Alaska right now. So it turns out that there is someone, and I don't know where this person is. I didn't pin that down. I think it's in Anchorage, but I'm not sure. Driving around with the license plates Third Reich and Führer, right?
And then there was also a third license plate that hasn't gotten much interest. It was SS 888888.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So we have a liberal blogger in Alaska who goes by One Hot Mess Alaska, and she's really awesome. She's hilarious. Look at her blog. Look at her Twitter feed. She outed the person with the Führer and Third Reich license plates, and so there's been quite a dust up over the past couple of days, and she's gotten a lot of social media hate. And anyway, Shannon Moore, who's a journalist here in Alaska, said, "Some things are hard for me. Not being a Nazi isn't one of them. I find it completely natural not to be a Nazi, which leads me to think some people go out of their way to be Nazis. Also, in Alaska, it needs to be said, Nazis are bad. Very bad. I thought everyone had seen Indiana Jones." I love her.
I do too.
All right. So this kind of plays into what you were just talking about, though, in terms of some of the conspiracy cult stuff. So there is a whole crossover that has happened between QAnon followers and a group that I had never heard of called the Sovereign Citizen Movement.
Oh, God.
You know who they are, apparently.
Yes, I have seen many a video of people filming themselves getting pulled over and demanding that they are sovereign citizens and they are not they don't fall under the same laws as the rest of us, and you can't pull me over, demand my driver's license, and like, yeah.
So sovereign citizens believe that a law enacted in 1871 secretly turned the U.S. into a corporation and did away with the American government of the Founding Fathers. The group also believes that Franklin D. Roosevelt sold U.S. citizens out in 1933 when he ended the gold standard and replaced it by offering citizens as collateral to a group of shadowy foreign investors. So,
and I have to tell you that every single sovereign citizen video I have seen on the internet to date has been a white person because black people would not get away with not rolling their window down for a cop. And
right.
Stop. I'm sorry.
Okay, like, so Travis
100% white privilege.
Travis View, who is one of the guys who does the QAnon Anonymous podcast, which is a podcast that breaks QAnon down and dispels the garbage that they spew, posted on Twitter, some QAnon followers are borrowing discredited arguments from sovereign citizens in order to yet again move the goalposts. They're absurdly claiming Trump will be inaugurated on March 4th because the U.S. was incorporated in 1871 and all amendments passed after that are invalid. And apparently we used to inaugurate our presidents on March 4th, and then it was changed. And I want to say the article says, it was changed in 1933. Inaugurations were moved from March 4th to January 20th to shorten the lame duck period of outgoing presidents. QAnon followers believe that Trump will become president of the original republic and not the corporation that they believe that the 1871 Act created. So just when you thought everybody from Q was having a meltdown and that they totally thought that QAnon was a sham because Donald Trump didn't get inaugurated last week, no. The plan is that he's actually getting inaugurated on March 4th.
God, it's like that doomsday cult guy who keeps predicting the end of the world, and when it doesn't happen,
he moves the goalpost.
Calculated.
Yeah.
Like I didn't account for leap years for these past 6 centuries. Like, what? Oh man, I have a punch card of all the apocalypses I have survived, and at some point I'm getting a free one.
So, Phil had kind of wanted us to do this episode because he wanted us to talk about the insurrection. And we kind of looked for something as a vehicle to talk about the insurrection around, which is sort of how you found this movie. I am going to say one of the things that has also kind of freaked me out, and this is an article from Vox. Basically, it's just cautioning that we are headed into a really turbulent time of worsening political violence. And that not since the 1970s have we seen the kind of violence that we have seen in the past few years. And the author specifically cites right-wing shootings like the attack on the Emmanuel African Methodist Church, like the shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue, the shooting at the El Paso Walmart in 2019. And the article basically says, the Capitol riot could basically take it one of two ways. Either we are going to get so freaked out that we're going to really tighten things up and we're going to keep something bad from happening again, or all of these little tiny groups that have been isolated and haven't really worked together are going to come together and become a lot more scary. So we're going to see groups like the Boogaloo Boys and QAnon and the 3%ers and
Oath Keepers.
and the Oath Keepers kind of come together and the Proud Boys come together and become a bigger threat because they are joining forces.
So, here's why I think that isn't going to happen, because it can't. Because...
this goes back to you being the nice one and me not being the nice one.
No, this is... They can't even work together now. I mean, Richard Spencer doesn't like Mike Ceranovich. Mike Ceranovich doesn't like Gavin McInnes. Gavin McInnes doesn't like any woman. So, of course, even though he had Lauren Southern on his podcast and wants to screw her brains out, even though he's got a wife and kids.
Which he is still hitting on her, by the way. He is still hitting on her.
None of them are going to be able to work together because they're these tiny factions of people that, while some of their beliefs overlap, like you're going to have, and we talked about it last night, where you have people who are straight edge, who, they believe that you shouldn't drink or smoke or do drugs or have sex outside of marriage or masturbate or things like that. And then you have guys like, Richard Spencer, who, drink high-end whiskey and smoke cigars and, eat whatever. And they're all trying to have sex with the pretty blonde girl who is too naive to understand she's in over her head. But there's too many competing factions, and they're all so... They all want to be the alpha male, and none of them want to be second in command, let alone on the bottom. That they'll get along for a hot second, and then they'll be tearing each other apart.
And I am not convinced that I agree. I think this is going to be one of those where I'm not convinced that I agree on a pretty regular basis throughout the podcast. So here's what scares me. This is from the same Vox article. The defining essay of the Trump era is a 2016 piece called The Flight 93 Election. Written by Michael Anton, a conservative academic who would later serve on Trump's National Security Council, it compared the election to the single disrupted 9/11 hijacking, Flight 93, in which brave passengers stormed the cockpit and forced the plane to crash before hitting its target, the Capitol. If Trump loses, Anton argued, America as we know it would collapse. Charge the cockpit or you die. I think that is still the argument that these disparate groups are going to hear. They're going to continue to hear, charge the cockpit or you die.
That is terrifying.
Right?
Yeah, that is... Charge the cockpit or die. That is pretty terrifying.
Because just like we see it... Oh my god, my ridiculous dog in her toy.
What a perfect sound effect, though.
But just like you and I see it as a matter of safety and a matter of survival, they see it as a matter of safety and a matter of survival. And they elected people like Lauren Boebert, I'm sure I'm saying her name wrong, from Colorado, and Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia. They elected those crazy women to Congress this year.
It said the Alaskan women who had Palin as their governor for a while.
But we didn't elect her.
We didn't elect her. I strongly believe, though, that is a major root of the problem there, is when she gained national popularity.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who say that Sarah Palin was the beginning of the end.
Yep.
So there's another quote from this article that I'm going to read to you that was also terrifying to me. In mid-January, Representative Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado, said that the threat of violent reprisal was a major reason more House Republicans weren't voting to impeach Trump in the wake of the attack on the Capitol. The majority of them are paralyzed with fear, Crow said on MSNBC. I had a lot of conversations with my Republican colleagues last night, and a couple of them broke down in tears saying they were afraid for their lives if they vote for this impeachment.
I believe it. I mean, some of the stuff that I've been seeing come out of the charges for the people who stormed the Capitol and the inside knowledge that they had and the text messages that were telling them, you know, go through a door in the north hallway and you'll have to go down a corridor and to the left, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's terrifying that there was definitely some inside people. And I would be afraid for my life too, you know?
And I need to give this author some credit, so I'm going to go back up to the top of the article and get his name. His name is Zach. I don't know if he says Beauchamp or Beecham, because I've heard it pronounced both ways. It's Beauchamp. So I'm going to read another thing to you from this article, because this article is just terrifying. The problem is self-replicating. If more moderate Republicans are afraid to speak up, extremists will increasingly speak for the party. The more the extremists speak for the party, the more they will push Republican voters to the far right and embolden the violent far right, further intimidating moderate voices from speaking out.
Yeah.
So I'm freaked out, and definitely white noise went that much further to freaking me out that much more. I mean, I don't want to live the next 4 years in fear, and I do feel a sense of relief just in the last week that I have not had in 4 years. But, you know, I think we need to be prepared that these people are not going away.
No, I really don't think that they are. I kind of almost want to think that, like I said, that it's like they're going to go to ground for a little while and regroup and, you know, plan their next stage, their next evolution.
So we're already kind of doing Housewives Weekly, but there were a few things that I wanted to do specifically about in Housewives Weekly. So first of all, because of watching this documentary on Amazon, a couple of other documentaries about white supremacy and about hate in America were recommended to me. So I started watching The Politics of Hate. It's actually free on Amazon if you have Prime. And one of the prominently featured people in The Politics of Hate is Christian Picciolini. And you and I talked about him a little bit before we signed on tonight. Mm-hmm. So he actually is an author. He also founded a group called Life After Hate. His books are White American Youth, which I just finally finished listening to tonight. I had started listening to it and then fell off, and when you recommended this movie, I was like, I should finish that Christian Picciolini book. And I started listening to his second book, Breaking Hate, tonight. He is actually someone who, when he was 14, was recruited by a very well-known white nationalist in the Chicago area, and he was a really significant part of the white supremacy movement in Chicago and nationally for about 10 years. He also was in a white supremacist punk band. He trafficked in white power music. He was one of the main purveyors of white power music. He actually opened a music store in Chicago, and that was kind of how he made all of his money. And when he stopped espousing white supremacist beliefs and stopped carrying white power music, his client base basically dried up and he had to shutter his store. Anyway, Christian Picciolini is in The Politics of Hate. I'm probably halfway through it, and then I had to leave and do some chores, so I haven't finished it yet, but I will. I can tell you that White American Youth is an amazing book. You pointed out that it bears some similarity to the story told in American History X, which is an amazing film. It came out many, many, many years after American History X, so I don't think that Christian Picciolini's story influenced that at all, but I thought it was interesting and good memory on your part that they bear such a strong resemblance to each other. The other stuff that I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of getting into some of the documentary stuff, but I kind of did a Where is Richard Spencer Now? Do you want me to save that, or do you want me to go into that now? Because I did that for each one of the 3 people featured in the documentary. Do you want me to save it for the end?
At the end, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to save all of those for the end then. The only other thing I had in housekeeping was, if anyone is interested, you can follow Sedition Tracker on Twitter, and they actually are tracking people who are getting arrested for their roles in the Capitol sedition, the Capitol riot, and it's quite satisfying. So Forbes actually has also written a number of articles about people who've been arrested and kind of where we're at currently in terms of charges that are being brought against people for their roles in the insurrection in the Capitol. As of today, and this is kind of a sad number to me, 140 people have been arrested and federally charged. Now, there were thousands of people there. And that's the number of federal arrests that we've had. And
I can't help but think of all of the marches and protests we've had at the nation's capital previously. And the one that sticks out in my mind is the women who were protesting the Supreme Court judge
Kavanaugh
being sworn in, and I think it was like 160 women, most of whom who were victims of rape, were arrested.
And they were probably all arrested that day. Yeah.
They were arrested at the scene.
It hasn't taken 2.5 weeks to arrest them.
Nope.
And most of them haven't been released back to mommy's basement.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. So you and I talked a little, I think it was you and I who talked a little bit about this last night. So there is some debate about whether or not some of the people who are identified are even going to get charged. Was it you and I, or was I talking with someone else?
I think you were talking with someone else.
Okay. So they may not even charge the bulk of the people who were involved. They being the federal government, the Department of Justice. They're like, well, if they didn't violently break in and they didn't do anything violent, maybe we're not going to charge them because it'd be really difficult to win and we really don't want to clog up the courts. That's the rationale.
Wow. No, you charge them and you let them plead out.
I am a big believer in the hashtag accountability before unity.
Yep.
These people need to be accountable for what they did. Every blessed one of them. Right up to the insurrectionist in chief, who, by the way, impeachment charges were delivered to the Senate today.
I just could not imagine how emboldened I would feel if I were allowed to storm the Capitol and break windows and defecate in the halls and
beat a Capitol Hill police officer to death with a fire extinguisher,
with many others injured and traumatized
and COVID infected.
So that we had to
Don't forget, and COVID infected.
Yep. Yeah. And so much so that we had to have more National Guardsmen on duty during the inauguration than we have in 3 countries we have skirmishes in. Like, I can't imagine how emboldened I would feel if I got away with that.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
And the thing is You know, I made the snarky comment about the insurrectionist in chief, Donald John Trump. I sincerely, sadly believe that all of the powerful people who incited this riot, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, the Trump children, I'm gonna blow his name. I can't remember his name. There's another guy from Congress who spoke to the crowd before they stormed the Capitol, who was appalling as well. Steve Bannon spoke to the crowd. None of those people are going to be held accountable. And that makes me sick, because I strongly support the people who said Donald Trump lit the match.
You know, not only did he light the match, he gathered the kindling over the years, because there had been funding for programs like Life After Hate.
Like Christian Picciolini's organization, Life After Hate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And Donald Trump cut the funding for programs like that. And so you had less programs to de-radicalize people and to help them leave these, radicalized sects of Nazi clubs and God, I don't know. I'm trying to focus on something that I've been hearing a lot recently about. And even one of my friends posted something on Facebook that AOC is going to put people through re-education camps.
Oh, God.
No,
so
AOC is pushing for refunding the programs that de-radicalize people like this.
So someone that you and I...
the funding back.
Someone you and I both know from the podcast community made a snarky comment about AOC on my Facebook page today, and I was like... he was basically comparing me watching this film to him tormenting himself with hours of footage of AOC. And I wrote back and I said, number one, we need to be aware of what people are saying. Number two, one of the people in this documentary, Mike Cernovich, is talking about a bid for Congress. And you don't want this person saying that he represents your views.
Or maybe you do.
Or maybe you do. And that scares me. Yeah. That scares me. I do want to put out since you're talking about groups that need our support, and that suffered in the wake of Donald Trump cutting funding, I want to put out a plug for the Southern Poverty Law Center. Mm-hmm. So SPLC tracks hate groups down to the point of tracking slogans and tattoos, like the slogans and tattoos that we saw at the insurrection. Like that frickin' t-shirt that said 6 million aren't enough. Mm-hmm.
Or Camp Auschwitz.
Like the guy with the Camp Auschwitz t-shirt. It's tracking stuff like that. So I think it's really, really important to give our money to groups like the SPLC. So they are www.splcenter.org. And they also have a podcast called Sounds Like Hate. So I would recommend that podcast as well as the QAnon Anonymous podcast.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the QAnon Anonymous guys.
I actually did sign up for their Patreon only podcast last night because I was like, I need to pay closer attention. This is starting to get really creepy.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we head into our summer-winter road construction and bycatch?
Nope. We have covered a lot of ground.
Oh my God, and we could keep talking. Mm-hmm. So do you want me to go or do you want to go?
I'll let you go.
Okay.
Did you find any good, first of all? Was there anything summer about this?
I actually did. And it goes back to what the director said. This documentary, if you pay attention, really does show the unraveling of each of these people in some small way.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a good life. Peddling hate is not a good life. Richard Spencer is now divorced and living with his wealthy mother. Lauren Southern had tons of self-doubt, as we talked about. She is still having self-doubt. She's still getting preyed upon by horrible people who, say that they're supporters of the alt-right movement and supporters of her, but they send her rape messages, they send her hateful messages, they're constantly hitting on her. So she's really in that gray area of being this beautiful face of hate, but also being less than the men that she's hanging out with because she's a woman and she really should be making babies.
Mm-hmm.
So Gavin McInnes actually said to her at that gathering where there were like 3 men and her, so it was like McInnes, I think Richard Spencer was there, maybe Cernovich was there, and then it was her. She got there and all 3 of them were in chairs and there was no chair for her. And they said, she kind of joked, well, this is a real boys club. There's not even a seat for me. And Gavin McInnes said something to her basically along the lines of, well, if you're not producing children, you don't get a seat.
Oh, that is so gross.
So, while she kind of has a pretty life right now, she's got this new husband, she's had a baby with this new husband, she's sort of reinventing herself. She's got a new documentary out called Crossfire, which supposedly looks at things from both sides. Does that argument sound familiar? She's still ugly. She's still ugly on the inside. But she's also dealing with a ton of misogyny that comes with the territory. So her life is not pretty. And Mike Cernovich, he's basically back to peddling snake oil. Like literally peddling snake oil. And by the way, shame on Amazon. You can buy Gorilla Mindset products and all of Mike Cernovich's books on Amazon.
Ugh.
You can buy his cheesy supplements on Amazon.
And, he's only a couple years older than me, and I just gotta say, dude, I can turn you on to some better serums. Because I think you and I probably could drink shot for shot, and my skin don't look nearly as bad.
That is so funny. No, your skin is amazing.
For my age. Let's be fair. For my age.
So that's my summer. That's my good, is that actually we do see that these people are unraveling a little bit before our eyes. And you pointed it out too, and I didn't write this down, but it's completely accurate, which is they can't even keep it together to not tear each other apart.
Oh, yeah.
They're each calling the other grifters, and I actually wrote, and I was saying to you, I can't remember who called who a grifter, but I was like, really, seriously, if that person is calling you a grifter, that's bad.
Well, and I did write down that Richard Spencer called Mike Cernovich gross. He's like, have you seen the things that he's written? Like, it's basically...
Right.
How to,
he was
like, how to rape women, basically.
Completely grossed out by all the sex blogging that Mike Cernovich has done. Although, on the flip side, Mike Cernovich tears him apart because he embraces neo-Nazis. And he's like, Mike Cernovich is like, the neo-Nazis are going to be the death of us. We can't have Nazis in our ranks. It's terrible. You can't have Nazis representing us. It's not okay.
Right. At the thing where Richard Spencer was like, hail Trump, hail,
right.
Whatever. And the guy stands up and yells Sieg Heil.
Right.
Like Mike Cernovich was like, we can't have that.
Yeah, no, it was, it's
like,
actually really funny. And then, it wasn't Mike Cernovich, but it was Milo Yiannopoulos, who they didn't talk about in this documentary, but he's a creeper too. And
he's the one who outed Richard Spencer.
So honest to God, I'm really at the point where I think I'm going to break up with Bill Maher. After all these years, I'm pretty sure I'm going to break up with Bill Maher. I was not excited about him platforming Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah.
I was not excited with him platforming the various people. I mean, he had
Kellyanne
Steve
Conway.
Bannon on there. Yeah, he had Kellyanne Conway on there last week, starting her apology tour, and I was like, all right, Bill, I'm gonna give you one more week. And then this week I was like, no, I don't think I am. I actually don't think I am. I think I'm breaking up with you. You've been my boyfriend for a long time, and I think we're calling it quits, buddy.
I think the last one that I watched was an Ann Coulter one about a year ago, and I was like, you know what? Just stop. You know, you're always trying to play the devil's advocate, and it doesn't wear well.
Yeah, I mean, I get, and this is part of what we're talking about. You need to know what people who don't agree with you are saying. You don't need to give them a platform. They will find a platform.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Apparently, unless you're an ex-president who's been deplatformed everywhere, because don't get me wrong, I am like at least a couple of times a week now, I'm like, what is he thinking?
I know. You and I were talking about this last night. It's a little scary because I'm kind of like, the silence is deafening.
Yeah, I kind of liked knowing what was going on inside of his head because you could kind of keep track of him. But now it's like, where is he? What's he doing? What's he thinking? Who is he talking to?
Yeah.
Oh, scary stuff.
All right. So what was your summer?
My summer was actually very similar. It was the scene where Lauren Southern does go on Gavin McInnes's show, and she is sitting in a chair in the corner while he's talking to his other guests, and he's talking about how, there are these 4 women terrorists, and they had knives, and they sucked, and like the last Ghostbusters movie with all the women and Ocean's 8, and like women just have to ruin everything. Right. And you just kind of pan over to Lauren Southern and she's like, and then to go on his show and be like, yeah, white privilege doesn't exist because like we're supposed to have this privilege 100% of the time. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you do. Trust me. Like, speaking as a white woman, like, you definitely have white women privilege. I am ashamed to admit I have used it at traffic stops, but I have. And, I don't get watched when I go into a store. I don't have to worry that I'm going to be murdered by police. Like, white privilege is a thing. And just because your life has trouble doesn't mean that being white makes it worse, no. Anyway, so, and then her in the Uber on the way to the airport, and that one side of the conversation we got of her talking to Gavin McInnes, and
right. And he's totally coming on to her and being completely inappropriate.
Well, she said, we shouldn't even be talking about this.
Okay, I'm going to drop one of our I'm going to drop one of our mandatory F-bombs. So according to the director, the other side of the conversation was, you want to fuck me. I'm your childhood hero.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Sorry, go ahead. And you were saying... So she was saying we shouldn't even be having this conversation. You have a wife and children.
Well, and she said, I was so drunk, I don't remember. I just remember going to sleep. So it kind of sounds like maybe they kind of already did.
I was a little, that I caught that too.
Yeah. And then cut straight to her, like, having this, like, moment in her apartment where she's like, I've had some really nasty experiences and some heroes have, fallen from my eyes. Rape is a real thing, and
right. Whereas before she was at that protest holding up, there is no such thing as rape culture. If you want rape culture, go to Africa.
Right.
Remember?
And so I'm like, something happened.
Well, and like I said, she is continuing to this day to get inappropriate texts and calls from Gavin McInnes, who completely denies it.
Oh my God.
Completely
And, like,
denies it. And by the way, her little turn to the camera while she's still in the car going, "Send help, please."
yeah.
I
Like,
still, you're cutting her way more slack
girl.
for being 22 and stupid than I am going to, because when I was 22, I was learning how to be a nurse and how to do like life-saving interventions on people.
Yeah, but I don't hold everybody to my own standard. Like, everybody's different. And I feel like she was like kind of a sheltered little Barbie doll up in Canada. And don't get me wrong, what she says and does absolutely drives me nuts, even like more so than others, because like guys like Richard Spencer and Gavin McInnes and uh, Mike Cernovich are only really trying to affect American politics, whereas she's like going over to Italy and trying to stop boats from coming into their harbor. Like,
Actually,
mind your
I
business.
can't speak for Mike Cernovich, but Richard Spencer has been to multiple European countries and banned from multiple European
Yes.
countries as well. So,
Yes. She seems to be wanting to affect it more. He just wants he seems to want more to talk about how, like, I want a white ethos state, like, he doesn't seem to care so much about other countries as, like, she just sticks her nose in everybody's business because she's been in Australia. She's been all over. And I'm like, you had, like, talk about white privilege, like, to be able to just go all over the world and preach to people about how their country should be. Like, oh, but like the kind of little bit of rude awakening that we saw her get on camera, and that I kind of think that she had, and then all of a sudden cut to her and she's pregnant and she's going to have a mixed race child, and she's dropping social media. And yeah, I think she got in way over her head, and she just kind of doesn't know how to get out now. But
again, I think you're giving her way more credit and way more kindness than she deserves, but we'll
I probably
we'll watch
am.
her and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my summer. What was your winter, and could you narrow it down?
So my winter, and this also goes back to something that the director said, so many of them look so nice, so polished, and so normal. And what I wrote was, this isn't my father's KKK or Christian Picciolini's white power groups. These people blend very well.
Except that awful haircut
Right.
the guys that follow Richard
Which
Spencer
apparently
get.
that is called fasci, which is short for fascist.
Oh,
I
of course.
found that out today. Well, in my deep dive on the internet. Yeah, no, that's a
Ugh.
terrible haircut. And if you look, it does mirror Hitler's haircuts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, overall, like, especially when you look at some of the young men that are surrounding him and marching with him as, like, his protective brigade,
Mm-hmm.
they look pretty normal. They look pretty much like a guy that you would meet on the street. Now, granted, Gavin McInnes looks like a creeper in his plaid suit with his creepy beard and mustache. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
some of them do look like creepers, but a lot of them look super normal, and that was really disturbing to me. Like the chick who was going around Europe and who was in Russia with Lauren Southern. She looked totally
Yeah.
normal.
Yep.
Which, by the
She
way...
looked like a girl who would be doing your eyelash
Yep.
extensions.
Which, by the way, I also read that Lauren Southern was so horrified by Russia that it was a horrible experience, that she thought that they were monsters, that, like, even down to the taxi drivers who would, like, take advantage of her by kind of making up their own fares. She basically spent 2 weeks in her hotel room drinking because she was like, no, Russia's yucky.
Okay, so this is kind of getting off into a little bit of bycatch, but I felt that all of the people profiled were so loathing at their center.
Okay, so this is getting into some bycatch, and I definitely want to talk about Mike Cernovich's mom and his experience with his mom.
Yes.
Because it directly goes to some of my crap with my dad.
Yeah.
So, yes, I definitely want to talk about that.
Okay.
I agree. And, it goes back to the James Baldwin quote that the movie opened up with, which we still need to watch the James Baldwin movie, I Am Not Your Negro. But basically he said, if you peel all of this hate away, they realize that they have tremendous pain to deal with, and that's what's left.
That's a really good point. I forgot about that quote.
Mm-hmm. I'm loosely paraphrasing, but that was essentially the upshot of the quote.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your winter?
Okay, so my winter, and I go back to Gavin McInnes, and I think it's because, I kind of hoped and expected him to also be profiled in this because he is such a monster. Big figure in the alt-right. Yeah, a monster. But they didn't profile him, but they did have some stuff from his show and some of the speakings that he's done. And he stands up and proclaims, "I am a Western chauvinist and I refuse to apologize for creating the modern world."
The whole Western chauvinist thing, I was like, oh.
And I'm sorry, dude, you did not create the modern world. Okay, so inventions from women, medical syringes, fire escapes, engine mufflers, circular saws, chocolate chip cookies, the locomotive chimney, inventions by Muslim people, coffee, clocks, cameras, universities, flying machines, surgical instruments, maps, music, and algebra. Inventions by Black people. Traffic lights, closed-circuit TVs, mailboxes, laser cataract surgery, the touch-tone phone, 3D special effects, blood banks, and refrigerated trucks. Sorry, dude, Western chauvinists did not invent the modern world. We all did. Try again. So that was my bad. I think that was the thing that made my blood boil the most, was I was just like...
And I'm flipping through my notes because I think I wrote that down too.
They proclaim these things in front of these impressionable, mostly young men, and they believe it. They don't even do the simplest of Google searches that I did to find out that our society was built upon men, women, people of color, people of different religions, people from different countries. Get over yourself.
I forget who it was, but somebody was like, we created this, and I was like, yeah, you did. But what you created was the murder of Heather Heyer. Yeah. The Tree of Life shootings, the El Paso Walmart shootings, that's what you created.
Yep.
Yeah, I wrote something similar down in my notes, and I can't find it right now. But, ugh.
But, that was my bad. Like I said, Richard Spencer is awful. Mike Cernovich is awful. Lauren Southern is not great. But
she's awful.
For some reason, Gavin McInnes just gets under my skin. And I have seen many of my left-wing YouTubers that I follow, kind of spotlight some of his antics, and he's just foul. Oof.
Oh, you'll have to send those to me, although I won't watch them before I go to bed.
All right. So, what was your road construction, and was it good or bad?
So, I think it was bad.
Of course
And
it was. Like,
and
it
I
was
want to
100% good.
say it's that I was so completely triggered by this documentary, and I was triggered in part because of my father. I don't know that I've said it on Real Housewives. I suspect I have. I'm pretty sure I've said it on Biters. He is a real dyed-in-the-wool neo-Nazi. I am not proud, but that is who he is.
Yep.
I have not had contact with him for many, many, many years. I didn't really know until I was like 14 or 15 because he was pretty much an absent father. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 3.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even before that. I think actually my mom and your dad married when I was 3. So I didn't know a lot about my dad. And then I went and lived with him for a summer, and I was either 14 or 15, and realized, but didn't really realize what it meant, how horrible he was, because he would sit with an old Nazi friend of his, and this guy was literally an old German Nazi who had somehow managed to come to America. They would sit and reload ammunition in this old guy's basement and Sieg Heil this and Mein Kampf that and 6 million dead Jews are a good start. And I really was not, I won't say I wasn't smart enough, but I wasn't educated enough to really understand like exactly what all of that meant and how horrible it was. And I've got to tell you, I mean, I'm 50 and I'm still dealing with the trauma all these years later of what that really meant.
Yeah.
And I have not forgiven my father. And I actually was telling someone today, I never will. There are a lot of things that he did that were horrible things. That is the thing I will never forgive.
Ugh.
That's monstrous.
Yeah.
So I was completely triggered because of all of that. And then the interesting thing is, I actually found that I was angrier with Lauren Southern than I was with either of the men. And this is really sexist, and I'm going to say it outright, but I expect better of women. I expect women to be better. I expect women to do better because we have dealt with centuries of oppression, because we know what it's like to be second-class citizens, because we have fought so hard to get where we are, and we're still not equal.
You know, and
I expect better.
Yeah, and I always go back to the whole, like, her and her friend were talking in the beginning, and she asked her friend to describe feminism in one word, and her friend said toxic.
No,
and
she described it as toxic.
Oh, okay. And, like, the only reason why you can say feminism is toxic is because of feminism. Like,
honest to God, I wrote down in my notes, the only reason you can run on a treadmill in those skimpy little tights is because of feminism.
The only reason why you can own an apartment or rent an apartment in New York is because of feminism. Like, our mother lived in a time when she could not get her own bank account or credit card.
Right.
Like,
the only reason you can have those fake eyelashes and that cat eyeliner is because of feminism.
The only reason why you can travel the world and tell other countries what's good for them is because of feminism.
Yes,
like,
totally. I mean, I was really angry with her, and this is like totally a goth girl thing, and this is also a little embarrassing, but I'm going to say it out loud. I was really angry when it opened with her in the vampire teeth and the cape. I was like, really? You're appropriating being goth as well? Fuck you.
I was wondering, I was like, what is this fancy dress party they're at, and why can't that guy spell Halloween?
And by the way, Richard Spencer, like, gearing up for his talk by listening to Depeche Mode, fuck you.
Oh God, that's like
I told you this was going to be our fuckity fuck episode.
That's like what's his name? Who ran for? He was.
Oh my God! It's like president. Donald Trump playing the YMCA.
Oh no! Like him playing Creedence Clearwater,
right? Which, by the way, yes. John Fogerty put out a beautiful song about our nation being in mourning. It's about 2-3 weeks old. I heard it featured on CNN last night.
God, God. Who was the one who ran for vice president under Mitt Romney?
Rand Paul, loving Rage Against the
No.
Machine. Yeah, it was Rand Paul. Or not Rand
No,
Paul.
Vice
Paul
Pres-
Ryan. Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan.
Yes.
It was like him.
He loved Rage Against the Machine.
Yes. I Rage of the Machine's like, have you listened to our music?
So I will tell you, it's so funny that you bring up Rage because I had posted one of their videos, Killing in the Name of, which is, the lyric is, some of those who work forces are the same as those who burn crosses. Mm-hmm. Which is totally appropriate considering the conversation we're having right now, especially around the insurrection in the Capitol. Killing in the Name of was actually remade by Prophets of Rage, which Tom Morello was part of the supergroup Prophets of Rage. Mm-hmm. That's actually my favorite version. And I shared, so we've kind of been going back and forth about different versions of this song. And I shared on her Facebook page today about a 4-minute video where Tom Morello takes somebody apart for saying, I just got so angry with Rage when they started getting political. And Tom Morello was like, could you let me know which one of our songs wasn't political so I can take that out of our catalog? Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome.
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah.
God.
Okay, so my road construction is that I was triggered because of my dad, and I was really pissed off at Lauren Southern, and I think part of it is because she was the lone woman, and I expect better.
Yeah.
We have to work harder, we have to do more, we have to be better.
Yep.
And part of that is because of our history as women.
Yeah. Yeah, and our continuing history as women, I mean...
Right. I mean, it was 4 years ago we were knitting pussy hats and marching because of Donald Trump.
We still have not had a woman president.
We're getting closer. We're doing better, but
we're doing better. Yeah. Oh, all right.
Sorry, I'm yelling, and I actually read this thing about Blue Yeti mics, and they said you shouldn't yell.
Well,
you should talk 4 to 8. You should talk 4 to 8 inches away at a 45-degree angle and not yell.
How the hell do I talk at a 45-degree angle?
You have it like set at the side of your face. You don't talk straight on.
Oh, that's what I do normally. Like my computer is straight on from me. My mic is off to the left.
Yeah, so I'm yelling. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, your road construction.
So my road construction, Richard Spencer. So that whole thing about how he wanted to be an artist.
Oh, I know. I was like, oh my God, Richard Spencer, the avant-garde artist, avant-garde theater manager and artist, completely denied.
I'm an
artist. It's like Hitler
wanting
to be a painter.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, you're a BS artist, but sure. And he's like, I don't want to say this and sound grandiose, but I'm bigger than the movement.
Yes.
I don't want to be a beautiful loser. I'm not interested in that.
I wrote that down too.
Oh my God. And then like to watch his whole so now his wife is divorcing him and he is living at his one of his family's home in Montana.
Which, by the way, so this is totally my bycatch, but I have to say this. His daddy is an ophthalmologist and his mommy is a cotton heiress. So he comes from a very famous, wealthy family.
Yes.
So, yes, he totally has this beautiful home, the huge home in Montana.
Exactly, where he's, like, skiing and stuff. Like, I'm just like, oh, you poor baby, you look like you're struggling. You know, life really got you down.
But I will say that his wife alleged domestic violence against him.
Yes.
And he is being sued by the mother of Heather Heyer for inciting violence in Charlottesville.
Yes. And so... my ugly, well, it was a bad ugly in that he's just so insufferable.
Yes, I agree.
But reading about all the places that he was educated, and he like had signed up for the PhD program at Duke, and he had dropped out to be a to do thought crimes.
Right. His words.
Yes.
Dropped out to do thought crimes.
Yes. And so he's just, everything about him is just insufferable, from like his stupid suits that he wears to the high-end stuff that he drinks to the huge stogies he smokes. He just grates on me. Like I'm like, he's like a Menendez brother, only like
not in jail.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, so when he was actually like driven off the stage in Florida, did you think he was crying in the back of that car when he got in that car?
Yes.
I did too. Yes, I did too.
Like all of a sudden he snapped up and looked at the camera.
Yes.
And yeah, I do too. And again, I go back to the whole, all of them are so self-loathing. They just want to be loved by somebody and valued, and
and so that goes back to the James Baldwin quote. It goes back to what Christian Picciolini talks about in White American Youth, and which he is starting to talk about in Breaking Hate, which is, it's not that we have to embrace what these people embody right now, but we have to understand their pain and figure out a way to get them through this to a place where they feel loved and heard. Right. Because that was the thing that changed things for Christian Picciolini, is he started to realize other people suffer the same way I do. That person who lost their grandma to cancer, who is Muslim, suffered the same pain I lost when my grandma died of cancer. Or suffered the same pain I did when I lost my grandma to cancer. So, somehow or another, these people have to be helped to realize, and I don't know how you do that without I don't know how you do that. I just don't. But somehow they have to understand that we all suffer the same things. We all want the same things.
And this goes back to a TikTok video that one of us shared with the other in a small group of people that we share stuff like this.
Would that be the one other podcast host that we share things with?
Yes. I won't mention their name for anonymity purposes, but it was like the day after the inauguration.
Oh, like the meltdowns.
Yeah. So
and you were kind. You were kind again, and you said, "I just feel a lot of empathy for that person."
Yes. So this woman was absolutely sobbing, and you could actually like feel the fear and anxiety in the things that she was saying, and the things that she was saying were positively delusional, but she really was feeling that fear and anxiety because she's in a cult. Like she's been programmed to feel that. And how do you deprogram somebody who is that deep in? And I had a lot of empathy for her because those feelings were real, and it's that fine line that we have to kind of straddle of, trying to knock some sense into some people, not literally, figuratively, but there's always you want to reach across the aisle, but they're insane, like how do you deprogram that sort of insanity, and can you, and what happens after that? Like, is it all better? Like, are you on my side? No, probably not,
I'm going to tell you, I hope I have more of an answer after I've listened to Breaking Hate. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I really do hope that I have more understanding and more of an understanding about how to reach across after I listen to Breaking Hate.
And I swear this goes back to my whole obsession with true crime. Not to say that all people who think differently than I do are criminals, but my fascination with like serial killers has always been, what makes that person think that? What makes that person, where in their life did something happen that flipped that switch that they think so far off from the norm, you know? And so same thing with politics, is it's like, yeah, I know we probably watch different channels and so we get different information, but we all have eyes and we all see suffering and we all see, you know, good and evil. I don't understand how people can rationalize some of the things that they can rationalize, because I know for myself that, like, when the politicians that I favor do really crappy things, I'm not still saying, hail that politician,
Right.
you know? Like, I don't think I've ever hailed Obama or hailed Bernie or hailed AOC. Like, I just, where does that come from in the brain, and how do we, like, soothe it over? I don't know.
By the way, Murderino, how many dead bodies does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know.
Obviously more than 6, because the light bulb in my basement is still out.
Oh, guess who has 6 thumbs and just got fired from the morgue? This girl.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't resist, and that totally undermined everything you just said, but I couldn't, like, not say it.
Oh, man, but we need a little levity. This was some pretty heavy subject matter. So I think we are straight into bycatch.
We are straight into bycatch, so I'm going to do my first of Where Are They Now? So Richard Spencer, divorced in 2018. As I said, his wife alleged domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I read some pretty horrible things. Did you know that when Donald Trump was elected, election night, he told his supporters to party like it's 1933?
Ew.
Uh-huh. He was an assistant editor for the American Conservative magazine in 2007 and was fired because he was too extreme.
Not shocking.
He had a podcast called Vanguard Radio. I am going to be 100% honest with you and say I did not look it up to see if it's still active. He was removed from CPAC in 2017. He was escorted out because all of the Republicans there thought he was too repugnant. That's saying a lot.
If you listen to the interview that CNN had with him right after he got kicked out, it was because nobody wanted to listen to those boring old conservatives. They all wanted to talk to him. And so he was taking too much spotlight, and that's why they kicked him out of CPAC.
Okay, that's super funny, because I'm thinking that he and the powers that be disagree, and I think probably both of them are right.
I would never be part of a club that would have me as a member.
Amen. So he endorsed Joe Biden. He said that he was profoundly disappointed in Trump. In fact, in 2018, he said, the Trump moment is over and it's time for us to move on. The
Biden campaign is about him.
Soundly rejected his endorsement. Yes. In June of 2020, his attorney for his legal case, over the Charlottesville killing, withdrew because Richard Spencer is not paying his legal fees.
Mm-hmm.
Big surprise. And I just wanted to say that not only was one person killed in Charlottesville, but 30 people were so significantly injured that they were sent to the emergency room and treated.
So, and if anybody, I've talked a lot about feeling a little bit sorry for Richard Spencer, but I would just like to remind people of what he said after Charlottesville, and Milo Yiannopoulos actually outed him. He outed the audio recording of what Richard Spencer said, and I'm going to say it for word, so I'm going to
use up some of our mandatory F-bombs.
Well, there are some very terrible racial epithets in it that I normally do not say, but in the interest of keeping what he said true to what he said, I'm going to say it, and I hate it. The voice recording continues, little fucking kikes. They get ruled by people like me. Little fucking octoroons. My ancestors fucking enslaved those little pieces of fucking shit. Later he continued, those pieces of shit get ruled by people like me. They look up and see a face like mine looking down at them. So that's what he said about Charlottesville.
Yeah, nice guy, huh?
Yeah.
A real peach. Yep. He totally belongs in the national discourse.
So whenever I catch myself feeling a little bit sorry for him because of cancel culture, I just remind myself of what he said after Heather Heyer was killed and all of those people were injured.
This movie was so triggering. Oh my God. Okay.
And National Vanguard Radio is still on the air.
Okay, I didn't want to look, so thank you for looking.
So they called MLK a communist recently.
Mike Cernovich, and I remember hearing his name, but I couldn't remember which podcast I'd heard it on because I kind of stopped listening to the Majority Report and the Young Turks because they got just too screamy for me.
Mm-hmm.
You probably remember this, but Mike Cernovich actually got Sam Seder, who is the main guy for Majority Report, fired from MSNBC.
Yep.
And he alleged that Sam Seder supported, like, pedophiles.
Yep.
MSNBC
Twitter comment out of context.
Out of context. Now, MSNBC, apparently there was quite a lot of division among all of the different anchors, and MSNBC backtracked and rehired Sam Seder. I haven't seen him very much since then. I've seen him a little bit, but not very much.
Yeah. He's a guest commentator a lot.
But yeah, so Mike Cernovich had a big war with Sam Seder from the Majority Report.
Yep.
Spencer said the night that Trump won, the alt-right just won. That was, I don't know if that was before or after he said party like it's 1933.
Yeah, I don't know. So did you know a lot about Mike Cernovich before you watched this?
You know, again, I had heard a little bit of Sam Seder, his kind of raging against him, but I didn't know much about him. I actually have rationalwiki.org, which I did not know was a thing, pulled up so I can share some of his better quotes when we're ready.
Yeah. So he was arrested and charged with rape in 2003, but the charges were dismissed, but he was ordered for community service for misdemeanor battery, and his record was later expunged.
So that says to me that he actually raped somebody and that it got minimized.
Yep.
Not that I'm judgy.
Well, and some of the things that he has advocated for, I don't even say want to border on rape. They don't border on. They are. He's a men's rights activist, and he was kind of one of those pickup artisty guys where it's like, unless it's a physical fight, it's not rape. Like, there's no such thing as date rape. There's no such thing as coercion. There's no such thing as intimidation. Like, so just get laid. I'm gonna share some of his finer moments because you led right into it. So this is Twitter, and thank God people can save things even when he goes back and dirty deletes. Fat/ugly women seek out dominant men to abuse him, then seek sympathy from others. He's so mean, hence why they troll Twitter. Have you guys ever tried raping a girl without using force? Try it. It's basically impossible. Date rape does not exist. Mm-hmm.
Since prison rape is no big deal, after all, criminals deserve to be raped, why don't we have co-ed prisons? Women enjoy rough sex because the ability to kill males and rape females is primary evidence of evolutionary fitness. Ugh. Don't go to Africa, rape culture is real there, which totally echoes crap that Lauren Southern was saying. Mm-hmm. He wrote an article called When in Doubt, Whip It Out. He dirty deleted it, but rationalwiki.org saved it. So if you want to read it, I will not read it. It's very long and disgusting. You can look at rationalwiki.org and look up Mike Cernovich and read it. A woman over 40, here we go, Marnell, you and me, is indistinguishable from a tranny.
Wow.
Trump needs someone like me on staff who can explain media traps like tranny restrooms.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could go on, but that just shows you some of the lovely things that are percolating through Mike Cernovich's brain.
I don't know how people follow people like this who... This wasn't like youthful ignorance or indiscretion. They continue to do
to
and
be
say
disgusting.
These things.
Yes. So I have to laugh. He wrote a book in 2015 called Gorilla Mindset, and it is described by Rational Wiki as a very standard masculinity self-help book. And then he wrote a book in 2016 called MAGA Mindset, Making You and America Great Again. And Rational Wiki describes it as exactly the same as Gorilla Mindset, but this time Cernovich takes inspiration from a very different primitive ape.
Okay, so you wanted to talk about the experience with his mother and the church.
So, this is pertinent to me because I found out this summer, so summer of 2020 actually, that my father is an untreated bipolar, which doesn't excuse his white supremacist views. It doesn't excuse his disgusting racism, but it does explain how he has not been able to get help, or how he has not been open to getting help. And the reason that Mike Cernovich's experience is important to me is that his mother was bipolar, and they basically got pulled in by a minister. I don't remember which church it was. I think it was the Catholic Church, but I don't remember. And basically he describes it as an exorcism where this minister or pastor or priest held up the mother's medications, shook the bottle. He can remember hearing the pills rattle in the bottle, and was basically like, you don't need this. You need to have your demons cast out. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks later, after stopping his medication, her medication, his mother ended up in a state hospital.
Yep.
So the reason that that's important to me is that I think that is really the root of Mike Cernovich's pain. I think that's the root of his dysfunction and the thing that derailed him and turned him into the monster that he is now. Well, and by the way, he's the person who is talking about running for Congress this year, so he needs to be watched.
He like at the end, there was, a little moment where, it's kind of like the whole, did you think Richard Spencer was crying? There was a moment where Mike Cernovich was talking on stage at one of his mindset seminars and talking about his mother and this preacher, and then later the preacher saying, well, I didn't tell her to stop her medication. And he's like, I'm the only other person that was in the room. And he's like, it was then and there that I decided that I was going to rewrite that part of history to be an amazing experience for myself. And he said that he learned that you just can't trust anyone, but you can remake yourself and you can brainwash yourself. And this allows him to deny anything. When anybody says, oh, you said this terrible thing, he's like, really? Did I? I don't remember saying that.
I'm actually super glad that you said that, because that was one of the things that was really profound about all three of these people, is that Daniel Lombroso did confront all three of them. Are you responsible for what you said? Do you take responsibility for the violence that has occurred as a result of the things that you said? And all three of them were like, well, if anybody did violence in my name, they completely misinterpreted what I said.
Yes. He speaks very little on camera, David does. But there is one point where he asks Richard Spencer, and I think it was right before Charlottesville.
He also asks Lauren Southern.
Yeah, but he asked him specifically, he's like, why are you a Nazi, or something to that effect? And Richard Spencer's like, I'm not a Nazi. Like, who says I'm a Nazi? Like, where have I said that I was a Nazi? He's like, these are just slur words. What if I called you a commie?
Right.
And like they just continually just like
deny.
And
yeah.
Oh, you misinterpreted what I said, or it was a joke. How many times in the past 4 years have we heard it was a joke? You just didn't get it.
Right. Or exaggeration.
Yeah.
Not even so much a joke. It's exaggerated, or you misinterpreted, or that's not really what was said.
Right. Or, you have to read between the lines.
Or that's just locker room talk.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, the final thing that I have written down about Mike Ceranovich and the whole, he basically, he made it where he could deny anything about himself, is he really doesn't like himself very much.
I thought that was really interesting, and I'm going to confess something here. I don't like myself very much. I struggle with that on a daily basis. So again, I mean, I actually really related to him in terms of his experience with his mentally ill mother, with him becoming a white supremacist. I mean, I could have very easily gone down that path.
And that's the whole psychology thing.
Right.
Why didn't you?
I could have very easily stayed with my father and gone down that path. Thank God I didn't.
Like, what makes somebody, instead of becoming the bigger person, makes them become the bully person?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so you're kind of leading into the handful of things that I wanted to share about Mike Cernovich that we haven't said. So he has frequently hosted Alex Jones's InfoWars. He actually gets the 4th hour of InfoWars.
Ugh.
He started as a blogger in 2000, started as basically anti-feminist, men's rights activist, rape denialist, rape apologist. He was very active in Gamergate in 2014. He is credited as being one of the people who popularized the idea that Hillary Clinton was sick, that she had Parkinson's, that she had a seizure disorder, that she wasn't healthy enough to have the presidency when Trump was running. So he's one of the people who was behind that. He actually was one of the people who spread the Pizzagate conspiracy.
Right.
He regularly promotes the idea still that there are highly placed officials who are engaged in child sex ring conspiracies and child sex trafficking, which is totally a QAnon thing.
So I want to go back to the Gamergate thing really quickly.
Sure, absolutely, because you know more about gaming than I do. So
Gamergate, for those who don't know, was the targeted harassment of women in the gaming industry. And Mike Ceranovich didn't just point his finger towards women and say, go to his followers. He hired a private investigator to hound Zoe Quinn, one of the central targets of Gamergate. He hired somebody to stalk this woman and harass her. He spent money to hire someone to stalk a woman and harass her because she had the audacity of being good at video games. Like, that, I can't reconcile that in my brain, like, at all.
And can we just pause for a minute and recognize that he got a 7-figure divorce settlement from his first wife? This man who is a men's... What was that?
It was so worth it to her, though.
Right, to get rid of him. But this man who is a men's right activist and who is an alpha male, you know, he's basically surviving on the by your leave of his first wife. And I know that he said, oh, well, what's more alpha male than getting paid off by your first wife? Dude, I can tell you, as someone who thinks men are pretty unattractive right now, there's a lot more that's really alpha male. And that's not it.
Yeah, like, I don't know, bringing home the bacon, being the breadwinner, like, providing for your family.
Not selling your crappy supplements and hoping that your wife and your 2 kids are going to make it on that.
Yeah.
Mikey.
Your poor current wife, like, screenshotting every time you're going to say you're getting out of politics so she can hold it up to you and be like, I thought you said you were getting out of politics.
And did we talk about this online, or did we talk about it before? His wife is Syrian. Iranian, excuse me. And she wants their children to learn Farsi. Could you explain to me, please, how someone who is at least biracial, if not white at all, is married to Lauren Southern and procreating with her? Could you explain to me, please, how someone who is Iranian, who wants to teach her children Farsi, who describes her friends and her family as what'd she say? Not religious Muslims, secular Muslims. Could you explain to me how those people are involved with Mike Cernovich and Lauren Southern? Please. I'm waiting.
Well, look at the Twinks for Trump and the guy that Lauren Southern was hanging out with.
And by the way, the full frontal male stuff, I was like, really? I don't need to see that. I don't even want to see that on a good day, let alone in a white supremacy documentary. Ew.
So, I mean, that just kind of goes back to the whole, like, you know, I feel like a lot of this is just a grift. Because, like, they talk, and, like, don't get me wrong, like, oh, my one black friend, you know, I can't be racist, I have black friends, or whatever. They always talked about how they have a ton of people in their lives that are not white and not straight and, you know, not this and not that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so there are some really self-hating people out there who hang out with people like you. You know, so, like, that doesn't prove the point that you're not a homophobe, or you're not an anti-Semite, or you're not, you know, a racist or a misogynist. Like, it just proves that there are people out there who are self-hating enough and want to be hangers-on around you. Like, Mike Cernovich's wife, like, I kind of, for me, and this is my personal opinion, I got the feeling that she, like, just enjoyed the lifestyle of, oh, look at my pool and my spa, and I have 2 kids, and she kind of seemed like a stay-at-home mom.
I actually kind of laughed at the whole, I didn't want to be a homeowner, but she talked me into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just like, you know, she puts up with it because it keeps her in the lifestyle that she's become accustomed to.
Which, by the way, speaking of Mike Cernovich yet again, I just was looking through some of the references cited in the Rational Wiki entry for him, and I clicked just on one of the things from his Twitter feed, and it was disgusting. So if you want to be really grossed out, just, like, click through their citations of his Twitter feed, because it's so much more disgusting than the few things that I read.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we talked about him getting Sam Cedar fired. He also got James Gunn fired from
from Guardians
of
of the Galaxy. Yes.
And there was
under the same thing. I mean, he was
Yes.
basically like, James Gunn is a pedophile.
Yeah, and what he does is he goes back like 5 years in your Twitter feed and he takes one tweet out of context and he sends it to your employer, and like people somehow give him credence in that, like, oh, this person who says terrible things is pointing out one terrible thing that you said out of context 5 years ago. You're fired.
Oh my God. So what you're saying is I better not troll him on Twitter.
I don't see how anybody gives him any like credence. I just ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Did we go through the update of Lauren?
Not yet. Would you like me to launch into that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my whole thing when and again, I'm probably being more unfair to her because she was the only woman, but I was like, who is this chick? How did she get a voice? Why does she deserve a voice? So I did a little digging. She did not finish her degree. She dropped out after 2 years. Mm-hmm. Her whole thing is that she was a YouTube personality. And she catapulted to fame as an influencer because she did a video called Why I Am Not a Feminist.
And she's pretty and blonde.
Mm-hmm. And she relocated from Vancouver to Toronto and worked for a group called Rebel Media, which was kind of the Canadian version of Breitbart. She did a documentary called Farmlands that alleged that white farmers in South Africa were being persecuted and murdered by black people. Okay, Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump watched it, and Donald Trump ordered Mike Pompeo to do a close study of the issue. So she's like, what, 20, 22, somewhere around there at this point. And she's got the ear of the American president and the American Secretary of State on some drummed up thing that's total garbage. The other thing about Lauren is that the British woman that we see introducing her to the EU is a far-right British member of parliament, excuse me. I should have put MP, not PM, named Janice Atkinson. And Janice Atkinson basically said because she's young and pretty, she, quote, can sell it better to my sons than I can sell it.
Oh,
it's disgusting. And so there were a couple of things. So the thing about Janice Atkinson, I thought, once again, there are more horrible Brits than I would like to admit. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you faded out for just a second. So there are more horrible Brits than I would like to admit. Being the Anglophile that I am, it makes me sad. The other thing is she's referred to someone who embraces trad thought, THOT, and that's a woman who describes traditional values but doesn't live by them. And that goes back to what you and I were talking about how, she can travel the world, she can have an apartment, a fancy apartment in Toronto, she can run around in her super skimpy tights, which is not really the values she's espousing. Mm-hmm. So when she left social media for that year and got married, she found God.
Ew.
Ew is right. So she's been reading St. Augustine's City of God, and she thinks vanity is our number one crime. But she has since returned to activism in quotes, and she is now living in Australia with her husband and her child. And she's a monster.
When you were talking about women who talk about traditional values but don't live by them.
Mm-hmm.
All I could think was Phyllis Schlafly.
So it's funny that you say that, because the person that they compared her to in the article that I was reading was exactly Phyllis Schlafly. Yes.
Oh, God, did I call it or what?
You called it 100%.
I mean, it's just, it's history repeating itself. Like, we did not learn the first time around not to listen to these grifters. And now they are just wrapped in a younger, prettier package. Ugh.
It's pretty disgusting, isn't it?
It is.
Like,
of all the things you could be, you choose to be a cunt. I know that's probably going to get me in trouble with Rob. This is going to have the explicit label to the max. But
oh my God.
Seriously, these people had every opportunity thrown at them in life. They are young, they are attractive, they come from money, and like, what do they choose to do? They choose to like just
be horrible people.
Disgusting.
So truly, one of the quotes that I wrote down from Richard Spencer is that he talked about it being his lived experience, which is terminology that gets thrown around in research a lot, especially qualitative research. Seeing your identity being demeaned. And I wrote, are you fucking kidding me? Really? You think your identity as a white dude is being demeaned? Seriously? I know a podcaster or two who said some things about really struggling as being a middle-aged white guy. No, you're not. You're not struggling. Sorry. You're really not.
You know, methinks he doth protest too much, because the only
who,
one
Richard Spencer, or the other person we know?
The only one demeaning the image is yourself. Like, you're not doing yourself any favors by being like a smug snake oil salesman.
Yeah. You know, honestly, it's so funny because the thing that I just wrote down over and over and over again was gross, gross, gross. This whole thing is gross. Like Lauren Southern, when she's dining with her date, George, who she ultimately did not stay with, you know, she's talking about how women love strength and men love youth and fertility. I'm like, could we please not perpetuate that crap?
Yeah.
You know, and then George, Europeans have a responsibility to reproduce. What?
You know, and I thought it was weird that they kept saying like, oh no, like it's not just white people, it's westernized people. Right.
I had to laugh. So that dude George that she was out to dinner with, who we did not see again, thank God. He also said something about like nationalists and collectivists, and I was like, dude, nationalists and collectivists are not the same thing. Nazis and communists are not the same thing. You obviously didn't read any history, you dumb fucker.
Yeah. You're conflating your ists.
So one of the things that really bothered me, and I think this kind of goes back especially to Richard Spencer coming from so much money, is that, you know, seeing them drive around in their good cars with their good tech and their nice clothes and their great makeup. You know, Lauren Southern at her worst was pulling down $6,000 a month from YouTube. At her worst. This is totally unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, you are young, you're attractive, you're well educated, and I mean, fairly well spoken for the most part.
Well, and that was definitely one of the things that especially Lauren Southern has going for her, is that she's incredibly articulate. She's appalling, but she's incredibly articulate.
And I guess the only thing that I can think of, the reason why she would go in this direction, you know.
What's her pain? Brainwashed. I understand what Mike Cernovich's pain is. I'm not entirely sure I understand what Richard Spencer's pain is. What's her pain?
So I kind of feel like maybe she was like, okay, like pretty blonde Instagram models, vloggers are a dime a dozen. I have to make myself stand out somehow. Oh, I know. I will get into the white genocide conspiracy theory.
So it's interesting that you say that, because there is a point in the movie where she says something like, it's amazing how much attention you get when you espouse, you know, outlandish views.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, is like, I feel like at least on her part, it's like 90% grift. There may be 10% of her that really believes that, you know, like, immigration is bad. But I just, some of the undercurrents in the things that these people were saying, like Mike Cernovich, when he was talking about his supplements and his
skincare line.
His skincare, and how he's hoping to just go with skincare in the future because the margins are higher and the risk is less. That is spoken like somebody who knows that it's a lot more easily, you're going to get sued easier for somebody having a bad reaction to a supplement than a line of skincare. So the margin is higher and the risk is less. So, like, that's what he's in it for. Like,
so I just want you to know that my heart hurts that these people are taking up oxygen. And my question to you is, do you feel like the director had to scrub with wire brushes each night when he was done with them?
Oh, yeah. I kind of feel like every night he went home and just PayPal'd money to the Southern Poverty Law Center. It was just like, here's my toll for the day.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry I'm giving these people a platform, but we need to be aware of what they are saying.
Yeah, I'm going through my notes again, and I literally have gross, dumb, and LOL written and underlined multiple times throughout my notes. Oh, God, they're horrible people. Horrible. And Richard Spencer actually is the person who called Mike Cernovich a grifter. And I said, you know, when Richard Spencer calls your previous work awful, that it's really bad.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if, and somebody asked this of Trump the other day. They asked it of him. They didn't ask it to him, but it was like, do you think if they had it all to do over again, they wouldn't have done it? Like,
no, you know what? I think all three of the people not just the three people who were heavily featured in this documentary, I think they all would have done it again. Although, interestingly, when Daniel Lombroso interviewed Lauren Southern for his article, he said, what would you say to a woman who's getting into the alt-right movement? And she said, I would say don't.
Wow.
Yeah, thought that was really interesting. But I do think that all three of the people featured in this documentary would do it again. I think all of the people in the background, like Gavin McInnes, like the Twinks for Trump guy, I think they would all do it again. Yeah. I think Donald Trump would do it again in a heartbeat.
See, and what's funny about that is somebody was like, if he would have known that this would all end in disaster and him getting banned from all social media platforms, do you think he would have done it?
He was still trying to cling to power the day the inauguration happened.
Because that was his only avenue. If it was that or nothing, you know? I mean, he heads back to... So he gave up living in Trump Tower. Mar-a-Lago was supposed to be his permanent residence, and it can't be because you can't have a permanent resident at Mar-a-Lago, which means he actually voted fraudulently for Mar-a-Lago because that was not his residence.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And so one of the deals that he made with, like the city of Miami or whatever, or state of Florida, whatever, was that, like, Mar-a-Lago is a resort and it is not a full-time residence for anybody, and so therefore he can't live full-time at it. And when he was trying to build a dock recently at Mar-a-Lago, they were saying that only residences can have docks, not resorts. And so he's been trying to straddle that line, and now he's got all of this spotlight on him, and he can't get away with just like greasing somebody's palm and being like, okay, yeah, it's my resident, even though like it's not zoned for that, and that's not what we call it, and I don't pay taxes like it's a resident. I pay taxes like it's a business. Like, so he has all the spotlight on him, and now with the pandemic, his businesses are in shambles, and now like the state of New York is cutting off their contracts with him, and many other places are cutting off all ties with him. Businesses, buildings are taking his name down from their, one of the Trump towers is like, I kind of have a feeling that like, if he could have just coasted, 4 years ago, he could have just did his whole, like he had been doing numerous presidential elections previously where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna run, and then not really ran, got himself a little bit of publicity, and then like peace out. He could have totally done that and been way better off. And now, he goes down as, yeah, he didn't start. He's one of two presidents who didn't start a war, but 400,000 people did die under his watch. So I kind of think that he wouldn't, at least him.
I don't agree.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't. I think his ego is so giant, and I think his brain is so small. I don't agree. All right, so I have a statement and a question. So okay. I felt poisoned by watching this documentary. I felt like I ate rat poison. And my question...
I feel so bad.
But I'm glad that I watched it, even though I feel like I ate rat poison. Does my anger make me just as bad as the people who were featured in the documentary? Because the day of the inauguration, or maybe a little bit before the inauguration, a Buddhist that I follow posted something like, meditate on these people, hope that they find some relief of their pain, hope that they find some relief of their suffering. I don't know that I've got that in me. I'd like to. I wish I did. I don't know that I've got that in me.
Okay, but the fact that you recognize that, one, you don't have it in you, and that you would like to have it in you, but you have to reserve all of your energies for yourself in this time of pandemic, and you're going through a divorce, and, having to completely upheave your life. I'm not going to knock anybody for reserving their energies for themselves.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that I'll ever have it in me. I'm not lying. I'm being completely honest.
And you don't have to.
I wish I did. But I wish I did.
Richard Spencer's life isn't going to be any worse because you dislike him.
Okay, I have another thing. I have so many notes, and I know that we need to wrap this up because Smalls is telling me we need to wrap this up. So when Lauren is just outside of Paris and she's starting to do that Borderlands documentary, the filmmaker that she's working with talks about algorithms for like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and how it will take the initial algorithms, the initial things that people look at aren't necessarily scary or worrisome, but the algorithms take them down a more extreme path. And I wrote in my notes in big caps, this is why deplatforming these people is so important.
Yep. Yeah. And maybe, the social media companies taking responsibility for their algorithms. And maybe instead of like shifting someone further down the rabbit hole of conspiracy, maybe you give them a counter viewpoint every now and then.
What a good idea. What a good suggestion. Yeah. But I will point out again that all three of our featured people in this documentary still have blue checks and are verified on Twitter.
Yep. And even though, like, Lauren has been deplatformed monetarily on YouTube, and so it says that she's been booted off of PayPal and Patreon. Her most recent video on YouTube still links to a PayPal account. So I don't know what that's about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly not going to go and find out.
No. But yeah, you know, everyone rags on cancel culture. But, you know, just like Donald Trump, the reason why you were canceled off of social media is
because you're horrible.
Because you went against the contract that you signed up when you signed up for, you know, XYZ social media. You know, you said that you weren't going to do hate speech. You said you weren't going to do bullying or misinformation or, you know, all of these other things. And if you do that, it's a private company and they reserve the right to kick you off. So
I want to say, by the way, and this is just a random note that I had as well, Lauren Southern, who is a horrible bitch, lied to those refugees in Paris to gain their confidence.
I know.
And to get their stories.
Again, this is
horrible.
The whole
horrible.
She sat with those people and heard that man say that yes, he would like to go back, but he can't because his life would be in danger.
And that and heard that other man say that he's lost all hope.
Yeah. And she went back into her van and was like, yeah, so I mean, I hear them, but, you know, like, how do you rationalize that?
Yeah.
Like, how? I don't understand.
I also want to say, and I was so offended by this, so when Mike Cernovich started doing his wellness seminars again, they actually interviewed an Asian dad and his son, and the dad was like, I just want my son to... What was that?
It was a hostage video.
For the son, anyway.
The dad had his hand around the back of that boy's neck. And
I was so offended because the dad was like, I just want my kid to see what a success maker is like.
Yeah, instead of me just telling it to him all day.
Yeah.
And like, that boy did not smile. That boy...
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it was a hostage video.
I'm like, blink twice if you need help, son.
Okay, my last comment, this is my very last comment. Richard Spencer, at the end of the documentary, says, there will be blood and tears as the current paradigm breaks down. He predicted what we saw in the Capitol on January 6th.
It's because it's what they've been advocating for. What the hell do you think blood and soil means?
Right?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yep. So the only thing that I want to add is the woman that Lauren interviewed early on in the documentary was talking about, like, what do you think you should look for in a man or whatever? And she's like, can he build a deck? Can he fix it?
Oh, right. Ugh.
I'm just like, okay, I can do all of those. That's all I need to do you.
I was totally thinking that. You can absolutely do all of those things.
Yeah.
I can't, but I know who to call. You.
Apparently, that's exactly what you look for in a good man.
I was so offended by that, again, because they were both so young. They were both so young in that video, and I was like, really? That's all we're looking for in a partner? Is that alpha male who can make he big duck?
Well, and her horrendous comment about have babies. It's like having a best friend that never stops calling you. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrible.
All right, here's the thing. And I'm going to say it, and I'll probably never date or have sex again because I say this out loud. But I can pay for my own shit. I can pay for someone to come and build a deck for me if I need one. And I'm perfectly happy with my frickin' dog who's driving me crazy right now. I don't need a baby. I don't need a handyman.
Nope.
I would like to have someone to hang with, hike with, maybe do some indiscreet things with. That's all I need. Yeah, I don't need a handyman.
I need somebody to be able to take the further away shots of me in front of the glacier, selfie shots, and somebody with enough patience to take 200 of them so I can choose 3. That's all I need.
Oh, I am going to say one more thing before we wrap it up, because
right.
we were going to talk about this in our Housewives Weekly and we forgot to. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is running for governor of Arkansas.
I get to use the F-bomb again. Fuckabee!
She is a monster. I actually tried to figure out how many lies she told. So the final tally for Trump is that he told over 30,000 lies, with nearly half of them coming in the final year of his presidency. I almost said pregnancy.
Pregnancy. Kind of like the erection instead of the election.
Right. They did not actually count up how many lies Sarah Huckabee Sanders told in the name of Donald Trump. But they did say that she denied knowledge of his in-office hush money payments, despite the fact that he admitted to them himself. Claimed that he created many more jobs for African Americans than Barack Obama did, when in reality Obama created 4 times as many as Trump. Insisted that Trump never promoted or encouraged violence, despite the fact that he said at a rally that he wanted to punch a protester in the face, that he told a crowd in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously? Okay, just knock the hell. I promise you, I'll pay for the legal fees, I promise. And he openly fantasized about Second Amendment people preventing the appointment of liberal judges.
Ugh.
She smeared women who accused Trump of sexual harassment or assault and claimed that they were the liars. Told an elaborate story about how she had heard from countless individuals at the FBI how happy they were that Trump fired James Comey. Which she actually admitted during her interview to Robert Mueller that it was a complete lie. So, yeah, those were just a few things that Vanity Fair said in their article about her announcing today. They call her Lie Master 3000.
Oh, God, I love it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to start a petition for Michelle Wolf to move to Arkansas and run against Sarah Huckabee Sanders. For those of you who don't remember, Michelle Wolf was the comedian at the 2018 White House Correspondents' Dinner who talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders having the perfect smoky eye from all of the documents or something that she burned for Trump or something to that effect. It really caught the ear of Sarah Huckabee Sanders and right-wing media. And so, Michelle Wolf, if you're out there, please run against Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I will donate to your campaign.
So someone did say that he was running against one of the seditionists, and I can't remember who. I saw it on Twitter today, and I was like, yeah, let me know, because I'll be sending some money to you from Alaska.
Yeah. Yep. It's how we got Ossoff and Warnock.
Oh my God. So I'm looking up the transcript of Michelle Wolf's speech at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. After Trump got elected, women started knitting those pussy hats. When I first saw them, I was like, that's a pussy? I guess mine just has a lot more yarn on it.
Oh, man. If nothing but not entertaining, that would be an amazing face-off against those two running against each other.
Oh my God. That would be a fantastic debate, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm scrolling to see what she has to say about Kellyanne. Oh, there's Kellyanne Conway. Man, she has the perfect last name for what she does. Conway. It's like if my name was Michelle Jokes Frizzy hair, small tits. You guys have got to stop putting Kellyanne on your shows. All she does is lie. If you don't give her a platform, she has nowhere to lie. It's like the old saying, if the tree falls in the woods, how do we get Kellyanne under that tree?
See, Michelle Wolf needs to run in Arkansas.
We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia in The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Every time Sarah gets up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's really resourceful. She burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create this perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it, maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you know? Is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women? Oh, I know! Aunt Coulter!
Oh, my God. See?
I would sign your petition. We're terrible people.
We are.
But, oh my God. This, I just, again, this movie brought up so much.
It did. I'm sorry for making you watch it, but I highly recommend other people watch it.
And I highly recommend other people watch it. It was totally worth watching. It was incredibly triggering. It's incredibly important. I would also encourage people to read or listen to Christian Picciolini's book. It's Piccolini. I had been saying it wrong for quite some time, but it's Picciolini. SPLC, give them money. Yeah. Those are all my pitches.
Agreed.
Those are my pitches, bitches.
All right. With that, you girls just watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Have a good week, everybody.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.